position because I never thought I'd ever be the kind of person that would be up in front of people talking. I was always the kind of person that was many, many years ago. And I can now say that because many, many years have passed. And in this journey that I have had with my family, we have learned a lot of things along the way. And I never thought I'd ever be in a position because I never thought I'd ever be the kind of person that would be up in front of people talking. I was always the kind of person that was the hands-on kind, get out of my way, I'm going to get it done kind of person. And so here I am. And I just pray that the things that we discuss together will be a seed that will be planted that will grow rapidly because it's got to grow quick. And I pray that you have organic soil in your soul, that seed that is planted will have every opportunity to do what it needs to do, and that comes to harvest. And so, as I started to say years ago, there was a little book handed to me. Some of us, maybe all of us, have seen it before. It's called Country Living. It was put together of various different statements. And the first statement that was ever penned by Sister White was based on a vision that she had to warn the people of the impending conflict that was right at hand. You know how many years ago that was? Almost 150 years ago. She wrote in 1882. 1882 came the first council of getting out of the city. Now, the real big question is, has the city got out of you? That's a whole other story. And when I first read this little book, it hit me like a train coming down a track. And I was a new believer. As I've told y'all before, I came through the hippie culture and hippie movement. I learned a lot of good things and I learned a lot of bad things that I had to unlearn. And some of the things I learned, I was very thankful for because I really didn't realize what was in these councils to the Advent folks that was to take this message to the world. And when I started getting turned on to some of these writings, I became excited because it was some of the things we were all talking about, some of us. And then to put Jesus in that equation was really powerful. So I want to encourage all of you to get, and you can get this on Amazon, this little book, Country Living. And I just want to read a few thoughts to you here before I get up on this board and start unraveling some stuff. I asked you yesterday, or I guess I imposed a question upon your minds that hopefully it stuck with you. Maybe you forgot it. What would you do if that was turned off today? Do you hear what I'm saying? We don't realize how easy it is to have the world controlling everything we're doing. We are so dependent on the system that has made life so convenient that we've become so weak that it's going to be really tough on some of us when this is shut off. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? This is not a joke, folks. I'm not here to play games with you. I would rather be home on my farm as to be out here talking to you for nothing. We're fixing to get our britches down to our ankles in a snow blast. You hear what I'm saying? Now, you can picture that in your head all you want. But the reality of it is, it's very real. I have been talking about this for years, and I have seen very little fruitage of people doing something about it. For 150 years, this counsel has been given to us to not just to help us, but to help others along our journey, to prepare for this crisis that's right upon us. And I just got chills up my spine just even talking about it again. I just don't understand why we're so deadbeat lethargic that we won't take this stuff to heart and do something now. It is very real, folks. Things are happening, and I don't know how to stress it hard enough to you. I'm just not one to come up here and start preaching. I guess I've been a father for too many years, and I seem to feel like I've got to be disciplining everybody, and I don't like being there. I didn't like having to discipline my children. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes the paddle is very necessary. It does. And I would rather be liked by everybody, to tell you the honest truth. In my inner spirit, I want everybody to love me because that's what you want yourself. But sometimes we've got this mamby-pamby wussy mentality about love. And we don't realize that a parent that has to discipline the children sometimes seems to be harsh. Is that right? Even though they may love their children with everything that's in their fibers, and it's not easy to have to do that. That's what I feel like I'm doing every time I go out. Do you hear me? So I pray that what we discuss doesn't fall on idle hearts. I just don't know how to tell you. I love all of you. I mean that. I see things that just does something inside my soul when I see your faces. It's coming, friends. It's coming fast. And things are happening in this world that is quite shaking. And I ask myself over and over again, as many years as I've been living on a homestead lifestyle, I ask myself nearly on a daily, on a weekly basis. My wife and I are now without our children. They're all scattered in their own ways in life. And here we are sitting still doing what we've been doing for all these many years. When I started this out, I was in my 30s. I'm now 70 years old. You hear me? This is not funny. You have no idea. I don't know if you saw on the news the pictures of the devastation that took place from Florida all the way up to North Carolina and into parts of Georgia. Not Georgia, but Virginia is absolutely mind-boggling. There were places in North Carolina that we used to go, and it was gorgeous, just near heaven on earth, if you want to put it that way. Gone. Gone. Homes wiped off the face of the earth. People without their homes living under bridges just to have shelter, if they could find one. That's just a foretaste of what's coming. Are you prepared? I'm telling you, these people weren't prepared. They had no idea. They didn't expect this calamity to hit them, did they? And the majority of people that were in that situation was devastation, big time. A lot of these people were replaced and put in other states just to have somewhere to stay or have food or have clean water. That's why I asked you yesterday, if this was shut off today, where would you be in this situation? This could happen overnight, folks. I am bidden to declare the message that the cities are full of transgression and sinful to its extreme. Do you know what would happen if these cities came to shut down like that? What about your shipping industry? Your shipping that comes right here in Seattle, or any of our major seaport cities where a lot of your food and produce is brought into, that is shipped right here to your Walmart or your Kroger's or your Safeways or whatever your stores are. Do you hear? I mean, we have seen it back there in our country where I live back south. That hurricane that hit was just a small testimony of what could happen overnight, folks. These poor people, if it hadn't been for neighbors reaching out, we shared a camper with the family because their home was completely underwater, where the top of the roof was about like this, about 3 feet of that roof was the only thing shown. The rest was underwater. A family of 6 lost everything overnight. Yeah. And it was the community, and I keep stressing this thing about community. Hello. It was the community that reached out to these folks and gave them, lots of these people were shipped, a lot of us shipped in campers to these folks that had no homes, had no shelter, had nothing, and they were facing very cold, damp weather. She says here, they will be destroyed by earthquake, by fire, and by flood. Now, calamities will come, and they will be awful. Are you ready and prepared to meet them? The time is near when our cities will be swept away. That was in 1882 to about 1906. These counsels were given. Now, my question to all of you is, as I said earlier, we can get out of the cities, but has the city got out of you? That's a whole different location. Because a lot of us, and I can say that honestly about myself because I grew up in a big city myself. And we are educated through life that that's just the way of life. Is that right? And we have seen over the years of our life journey, and I'm going to give you a little story here, and then we'll try to get up here on the board, is when we moved from California to North Carolina to set up my practice there in North Carolina as a naturopath, we were right in the middle of the whole life that we were all raised up into, if you know what I mean. We found a neat little country home and had a little bit of land, and we had 2 children at the time, and we had a nice little garden, but we were still 100% dependent upon the system. I was practicing and people were coming and things was getting busy and blah, blah, blah. And next thing I know, I started realizing, wow, what have I done? Do you know what I'm saying? I felt myself just melting back into society. It just comes on very easy and very sweet and very quiet, all at the benefit of you gaining a little bit of monetary things. And it really spooked me. And I sat and I talked to my wife, and we got to chatting about it for a number of weeks. And over a period of time, we decided we were gonna step away from that whole thing. And when we took that step, we really did not really realize where that was going to take us, if you understand what I'm saying. We just thought we would find, a place further out, and, I would do some carpentry because my original background was building, and so I had the building skills and all those things. And I'd pick up jobs or I'd whatever. And next thing we know, over a period of about 3-4 years, we ended up buying a bigger piece of land because we sold the one place to a family that wanted to get out. And it was like a little mini farm. And they were an Adventist family that wanted to get out, and they wanted something. And we'd talked about selling anyways to find something bigger and better and out further. Because in my head, I wanted to get out, and I wanted to be prepared for what was coming, and I wanted to be totally self-sustaining. Does anybody in this room know what that means? To be self-sustaining means that you don't need anything from the outside system. Now, y'all don't know me too well. You're getting to know me a little bit. In my younger years, I was a ball of fire. And when it said go, it was said, baby, it's all the way or none. Boom. It was wide open. And so when we found this place, it was a mess. It was a big mess. But it had everything we were wanting. It had water. It had timber. It had an old rundown home. It had a big old barn. It had cross fencing. It had everything we were looking for. And it was unbelievable. And we knew God had plopped this 70-acre farm into our lap for $57,000. Now, when you are determined to follow the Lord, I'm going to tell you something, brethren. He will work out things for you that you can't even imagine. We were young, and I was very zealous, and my poor wife is a very quiet, timid kind of person. And we had our 2 girls at the time, and they were coming dragging along like this. And so we went to this place, and that first winter, the wind would come in from the north and the snow and would go out the back of the house. No insulation in this place. It had just an attic that had a big open room up there, and an Amish man raised 15 children on this farm. And if you don't know much about the Amish people, they're quite interesting, especially the old order Amish. It was a miracle how us as an English family, I looked quite different then. I had a beard and all that. And so I kind of somewhat fit in with their lifestyle. At least that's what we were looking for. And being English, they don't sell land to English people. We are total enemies. And providentially, I ran into an old friend of mine that knew about this farm. We went over and we talked to the owner, and he had just come back from the bishop because the bishop's got to give them permission to be able to sell the land, because the land is actually controlled by the church. Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. And in fact, the church actually owns the farm to a greater degree. And anyway, there's a lot of stuff in there. I went to there, ended up there the very next morning, and I asked him if the farm was for sale, and he says, yes, it's for sale. He got permission from the bishop the evening before. But the bishop didn't stress that he had to sell it to his own people. He says, oh, yes, you can sell your land, thinking because they had some of their members ready to come buy the land, and I beat them to it. I ended up there, and providentially, the farm opened up, and I asked him what he wanted. I expected at least $100,000 for the place, at least. And I said, well, Eli, what do you want for the place? And he told me, and I said, I about fell over. And I said, look, I got to go to the bank. I'll get the money. I said, do you need money down? He said, no, you just shake my hand. I shook his hand. We were in our car driving out the driveway, and in come 3 buggies. They were coming to buy the farm. Now, if you don't think the Lord will work in your behalf, you need to wake up. It's harder now than it was then, because that was a long time ago when we did this and started this. But he still is in that business. But you got to put your heart in harmony with his heart. You got to put your life in his will, because his will help his children do wondrous things. I've seen it in my life journey. That farm turned into a model farm by a lot of hard work. We used to have people from all over the nation come to that farm to learn how to live. We were farming it with draft horses. We were completely independent. We grew 90% of our food off that farm. We grew our own wheat. We harvested, we thrashed it. We made our bread, our pancakes, our waffles. We raised all of our potatoes, our sweet potatoes, our squashes, our summer foods, all of it. And it was canned up over 1,000 to 1,500 quarts a year. I don't know if you can comprehend what I'm saying, because we're all too lazy to know what it takes to live from 1 month to the end of that year. 12 months, you've got to raise enough food to supply you at least for 15 to 16 months of your year, because you're waiting while your new season's beginning and growing and producing. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is not funny stuff, folks. It is hard dedication and hard work. But we're too soft. Here I was a doctor, and I walked away from being a doctor, and everybody's going, he has lost his noodles. I'm just trying to paint a vision. And we've got to get a vision. The people will perish without a vision, folks. And that is a reality. I had a vision, and it was burning inside my soul that I had to fulfill the vision that was put in my soul. And I was a young man, and like I said, I was full of more vinegar than I was anything else. And so it was full steam ahead. Now, I'm going to tell you something. When I talked to you yesterday about community, I learned community because I did not understand. I thought we hippies understood what community was, but the Amish people got community down to an art. Down to an art. Now, there's a lot of things within that culture you want nothing to do with. But the concept of community is powerful. A community is based upon independence. You have got to have your independent land. And what I'm stressing here, folks, is you cannot do this by yourself. I'm just telling you. You need, the council said, 3 to 5 families go into a dark county and start a work. There is a reason why that council was given, folks. That's a community. Now, when we moved there, I mentioned it earlier, that this place was in a shambles. It was an old order Amish farm, and you probably have no idea what that means. But old order, the more sloppy, the more run down it is, the more humble you are and more righteous you are. I know that's hard to get your head wrapped around, but the reality is that exactly is where their mindset is. So the more sloppy, ran down, and clattered windows and doors, and no paint on the walls, and siding falling off, and the porch is nearly falling off, you must be a righteous man ready for heaven. Because they are showing no earthly pride. And I said, wow, you people are full of so much pride to be so humble, it's amazing. In life, what happens, like in our society here, we think it's so important to gain more stuff. And so we get all this stuff, and all of a sudden we start serving the stuff, and we have no time for other people. In the culture she apparently grew up in, she grew up in a culture that stuff was not, it just wasn't there. They were poor. They just didn't have the stuff, but they had each other. They had each other. That's what community is all about. And when one needed somebody, that somebody was there to help. And I cannot stress this hard enough, folks. We've got to get the city out of our heads and get back to basics. There are a lot of cultures that are still holding on to that.
Where do we start to get back to basics?
Where do we start?
Yeah.
Our
starting point.
We're getting there. But I got to paint the vision in your head. And when I say what I say it because I'm talking to myself. And I know I'm having to talk to y'all too. But we did not understand the real ramifications of these councils. I didn't know what being poor meant. I thought I was raised poor, therefore I was poor. Shoot, the poorest person in America is rich. I learned what poor was when I went to South America somewhere, or Central America, and I was down there with people that were really, really, really poor. But these people were filthy rich, and they didn't even know it. These people knew how to live, and that's what I was having to learn. When we left North Carolina, where I was in practice, and ended up eventually on this place, it was a place of education. It educated us for where we are today. Now, I thought I was tough. I exercised, I rode bikes, and I did that kind of stuff, which is okay. But brother, when I got out there on the farm, I started learning hot diggity dogs. What have I done? We had gone 200 years backwards in our lifestyle. I bought a pair of draft horses. I bought farm equipment, and we started farming, and it got to the place, because you have to make a living somehow. You can't live in America without making some kind of living. Now, it wasn't a lot of money, but it was money enough to help pay for this, that, and the other. And by the way, we do have property taxes in this country. And you have those kind of things you do have to somehow find a way to pay for. Is that right? So I had to, as the father, I had to figure out, now here we are trying to fulfill country living and trying to live out in the country. And the council said that land would produce for you. We knew how to grow a garden, but I'd never grown a garden. You hear me? It got to the point where we were growing nearly all of our food for ourselves, plus the food for sale. "15 acres of land was being farmed." I don't know if you can get your head wrapped around that. Just take this 5 acres as if there was nothing on this but land, and you put it all in produce. That's just 5 acres. Now I'm going to tell you something. It's going to take for each one of us with a small family at least 2 acres to be able to have enough food off of that 2 acres properly farmed. And we're going to try to get there and try to show you some techniques of at least 2 acres of produce that is going to be your food for your time from season to season. Do you know what 2 acres is? Intensely grown, you can grow everything you possibly need to be able to put it away and have it for tomorrow. You definitely have a backhoe. You've got a back and a hoe. I lived from sunup to sundown in those fields. That's the way it used to be. And you don't need a gymnasium, I can guarantee it. You don't need to go running down the road to try to get some exercise. I can promise you that. And after plowing 15 acres with draft horses, you don't need to go walking anymore. You hear me? Now, yeah, that's right. Take a great big breath and say, you are out of your mind. You're right, I am, and I like to be crazy, and I love every bit of it. But I'm going to tell you something, folks. It's going to take just that. It really is. I wished I would have had community. I wished I would have had church brethren, but they all thought I cracked my whip. That's exactly right. While they were stuck in their city jobs, I said no more. Honestly, I didn't know I was supposed to take these things seriously. I wish somebody would have told me, oh, you can just read them. You don't have to take it serious.
To be aware of new videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to the Preparing for the Time of Trouble channel. For more free videos and downloadable audio podcasts, as well as handouts, go to www.preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com. Topic categories include recordings of live seminar presentations, country living, sustainable gardening, homestead remedies, how to be self-sufficient when the grid goes down, wild edible and medicinal plants, hydrotherapy, and end-time Bible prophecies. To take advantage of these free resources, go to preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com.